Hey guys, welcome to the second video in this TSQL tutorial playlist where we'll be looking at some of the types of TSQL commands. And just to let you know before this video that these subdivisions sort of apply to both SQL and TSQL, and also that um, some people often classify them into three subdivisions, some four and some five. So I wanted to break it down into the most granular form for you, which is the five types of SQL/TSQL commands. So let's have a look at them. So this is a brief sort of breakdown and flowchart of the different types of SQL commands. So you can see there are five of them here: DDL, DML, TCL, DQL, and DCL. So, and you've got some of the most prominent commands of each type listed below. We'll sort of take a look at them in more detail in the coming slides. So let's dive into the first one. So the first type is the DDL, or data definition language, and this generally consists of commands that can be used to define the database schema or database objects. So that is things inside the database or the database server, commands which can be used to create, modify, and delete items inside the database. You would use DDL commands, and they can be used generally by database administrators and backend engineers, and they are not generally used by a customer of or a public user of a product if you are developing one. So these are generally like admin tools, and they specialize in modifying the contents of the database with things such as tables and databases as a whole. So let's look at some of the common commands. So we've got the create, which is quite a typical command, or the most common DDL command that you'll be using, and it can be used to create the database itself, or it can be used to create a table, a function, views, stored procedures, triggers, and indexes. So these are some objects inside that reside in databases, and we'll be learning all about each of them in the coming videos. A drop. So drop is another important command which is used to delete objects from a database. And apart from this, we've got alter, which can be used to alter the structure of objects in a database. Truncate, which can be used to empty the contents of a database objects without removing the space that has been allocated to it. So drop is a bit different from truncate, and we'll be coming to a detailed video about the differences of those two later on. Then you've got comment and rename, which are pretty self-explanatory. The second type of TSQL statements are the DML, or data manipulation language statements. So these are a group of commands that deal with the manipulation of data present in the database, and it is the component of the SQL or TSQL statement that controls access to the data and to the database. And it's important to note that these DML commands are not auto-committed, which means they are not permanently saved into the database, and they can be rollbacked. So basically they are not final statements, whereas the previous DDL statements that we look at are permanently saved to the database as soon as they are executed. So the DML commands can be rolled back, and as I had said, they control access to the data, means they allow you to add data to the database objects that we had created using the previous set of DDL commands. So say we had created a table using DDL commands, that is create table. We can use the DML statements to add data to this table, update data inside the table, and delete data from the table. So some of the common statements are insert, where you insert data, update, where you update existing data, and delete, where you can delete records from a table. The next subsection would be the data query language, and this is probably the most well-known and well-used subsection of SQL, and that's given with the common word in their names, which is query. And so DQL statements are used to perform queries on data within the database, right? So it is the component of SQL or TSQL statements that allow you to get data from the database and impose order upon it. So what do you mean by impose order upon it? So basically it allows you to maybe filter the data or sort the data in descending or ascending order, or data had to meet a certain condition, only then it would be shown to you. So you use the select statement, which allows you to perform all these querying tasks on the data. And it's just to let you know, when a select statement is used, the results will be returned in rows of data. They're probably other formats, but for now let's just think of them as rows. And the results are compiled into temporary tables and then displayed to the user after a select statement is executed. So there's only one type of statement in the DQL section, which is the select statement, and it is used to retrieve data from the database. Then we come to the data control language, or DCL. These are just sort of access control commands or statements, and they are used to grant and take back authority from any database user. So basically how this works is that in most business settings you would have a common database stored on a server somewhere, either in the cloud or on premises, and you would have multiple database administrators or database engineers who would be accessing this database using a dbms software. So to control the access within these people who are using the database, we can use DCL. So there are two important commands to know: grant, which gives a user privilege and access to the database, and revoke, which takes away a user's access to the database. And these are also granular, where you can grant them some visibility but block some sections off, or you can revoke some sections and keep other parts of the data accessible to certain users. Then we come to an important part for TSQL, which is the transaction control language, or TCL. So what is a transaction? So basically in databases, a transaction is a single unit of work formed after the consecutive execution of commands. So in commands are probably SQL or TSQL statements, and a group of them bunched together would be known as a transaction. And there are certain commands in SQL and TSQL known as TCL commands that help the user manage transactions that take place in the database. So what does this mean? So for example, if looking at a common use case for transactions would be in a bank, where for money to be sent from one user to another, there have to be two operations that take place. The first one would be the money is subtracted from your account, and the second is that the money is added in the recipient's account. So say the money had been subtracted from your account, and then the bank lost power or had their server crashing. So what would happen if it was just the money that had been subtracted from your account and not credited to his? Obviously it's just money that you've lost. So to prevent these kind of situations, we've created this concept of transactions, wherein unless both the operations are performed, the transactions are not saved. So basically, if the subtraction is done and the money is then credited to the recipient, only then is that transaction saved to the database. And there are commands to facilitate this, calling namely commit, which commits a transaction, rollback, which rollbacks a transaction in case of any error occurring, or loss of power or server crash and things like that. Save point can be used to sort of further break down transactions with checkpoints and things like that. And then you've got set transaction, which helps you specify characteristics for the transactions. So this was a quick look at the 5 types of TSQL and SQL statements. Hopefully you've learned, got a good understanding of them, and we hope to see you back in future videos. So thank you guys, and once again, please do like and subscribe to my channel. And yeah, hope to see you soon.